All right, so let's talk about use case analysis. So one of the tasks that we have for structuring our data is to reflect that that data structure should reflect some requirements that we have gathered from various interviews that we have done with our clients. Right? So whatever data structure you come up with should be a reflection of us having interviewed our clients, some specification that we have captured. Yes? It should not necessarily be whatever we might have as an understanding, from our prior knowledge of the domain or some biases that we might have from having worked in the industry for quite a while. Right? It should always fall from us having have discussions with our clients. And whatever business rules, whatever constraints they might have on their particular business, that should be reflected in the data model that we come up with, right? So one tool that is very useful for identifying what the structure of the data is to interview, right? Interview and gather the requirements from our users. As part of that exercise of gathering those requirements is executing a use case analysis. Right? Use case analysis is identifying what our who our audience is, right? Who's actually going to be using this our application, and what are they manipulating? What are their goals? Right? Their goals will be that they're trying to manipulate some kind of data, right? Some piece of data and the relationships between that data. Right, and they will be electronically trying to manipulate this through some kind of user interface, right? And that user interface should reflect the different goals that they might have. So our task as part of the use case analysis is to ask them, what are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? And they'll say, well, I'm trying to find a restaurant. I'm trying to make a reservation for a table. And as they describe, these goals that they want to achieve, that will tell us, the verbs and the nouns, right? The verbs and the nouns that we are looking for, right? And also the relationship between these nouns and whatnot, right? So a very good place to start on the structure of our data is to identify these use cases. Okay, so let's talk about use cases and where it falls in the requirements gathering process. So typically, it's a very high level business requirements gathering that the designers will follow by interviewing the owners of a business, the managers, the folks that are knowledgeable about the business that we're trying to build something for them. Yes, so they'll have very high level objectives, right? They want to increase sales. They want to reduce any errors, any complaints that the clients might have. So they'll have these very high-level requirements. Usually, these high-level requirements will trickle down to actual concrete functional requirements that actually need to be implemented. Right? So functional requirements typically will be things that a particular page, a particular button, a particular user interface that needs to be implemented. Always drawn from this high-level business requirements, right? So it flows into something that needs to be built. As part of that process, there's going to be a process where we're going to interview actual users that are going to be using the application, always with the high-level business requirements as hanging over us. Right, there are going to be a driving principle, right, on whether these use cases are going to be able to fulfill the high-level business requirements. Okay, and the user requirements typically fall from having interviews, looking at folks at the forms that they're filling out, who they submitted to, how the folks that receive those forms, how do they process it. Right? How do they enter it into the system? What kind of pain points are they having? Right? What are the fields that they most use and the ones that they don't use? Right? They're also looking at error reports, logs in the systems. Also, any complaints that the clients are filling, any bug reports that are being submitted. So all gathering all this information is going to give us some knowledge on what are the different things that we need to address from the user's point of view. These are just some strategies on how is it that we would execute these kinds of interviews. Usually, these folks who we are interviewing, they're not systems engineers, right? They're not programmers. They're expert at their particular field, at their particular domain. So we should try to avoid jargon that we might use. So we wouldn't use schema, or we wouldn't use relationships or foreign keys prior. So certainly we would avoid using any jargon that is specific to our task. Right. Instead, we always try to ask things such as, what are you trying to accomplish? What is the goal? Explain to me your business, right? And the user will answer things such as, I want to be able to do X. I need to do X, right? So again, use language that is relevant to that particular business. A couple of things that we need to capture are definitions of what are the boundaries of what it is that we're building. What is it that we're building, and what we're not building. Okay, so some kind of boundary that tells us, so okay, we're building this thing, and that this particular system might interact with other systems, right? Might have other dependencies with those systems, but we're not building those systems, right? We may be interacting with them. So it's very clear that it's very important that we decide exactly what it is that we're building. We need to identify who our audience is, right? Who the players are in our system, who's going to be using this system day in and day out, right? If it's a restaurant business, then we might have you might have the owner of the restaurant, probably owns a chain of restaurants. You might have also the waitress might be using the same application. You might have a delivery boy also perhaps using the same system. Maybe somebody from outside, trying to book a table, that might be also a user of the same system, right? And they're all distinct. They're all trying to achieve different things. Each one has different goals, right? From the point of view of somebody who wants to book a table. They might want to look at the menu. They might want to, given a particular date range, a particular time range, they want to see if tables are available for so many people. They might want to read the reviews. They want to submit a review, right? So they have different use cases, right? Things that they want to use the system for. From the point of view of the waitress, they might want to see which tables are available and want to see what reservations are up and coming. They might assign different waitresses for different tables. Which ones are they responsible for, and whatnot, right? And the bills. And from the point of view of the owner, they might see feedback from multiple restaurants. They want to be able to respond to those feedback from users. Maybe if they see something wrong, they want to maybe offer them some remuneration or something that might make it right. So again, different actors will have very specific set of goals, right? Different set of use cases specific to that particular actor, right? Some of these actors will be human actors. Some of these actors might be system actors, some automated system that runs some kind of batch once a week, once a day, or once an hour, or system that we interact with, right? We might interact with some bank, we might interact with some providers, some other folks that we need to submit data and retrieve data, but each one will have use cases specific to the different actors, okay? Different goals. Now, some of those use cases might overlap. Okay, it might be the same for everybody. Everybody has to log in. Everybody has to register. Everybody might have a profile, right? So there's some use cases that might overlap. But for these to be distinct users, probably most of the use cases do not overlap. Right? There's many things that a faculty can do that a student can't. Right? But we both have some subset of use cases that we all overlap. The ones that do overlap oftentimes are not even worth capturing. Okay, so for instance, one of the things that I might ask you is not to document the fact that you can log in, that you can register, that you can have a profile. Those are just so common and that they're so obvious that they have to be provided, supported, that they're not even worth documenting. Okay, and I would ask you to instead, document use cases that are very specific to that particular actor. Right? Now, for your project, one of the requirements will be that you have to choose at least two human actors, and then one additional actor for every additional team member. Right? But since we are forcing everybody to have 3 team members, that means you have to have at least 4 actors for your project. Okay, and if you have less than 3 team members, you still have the same requirements. Okay, it's oftentimes very hard to grade this at the end of the semester, where some folks have 2, some folks have 3, something. It's just a mess to grade it at the end of the semester. So we're just going to standardize it this semester so that everybody has the same requirements, and we encourage you to be at least 3 students per team. If you want to be less, that's fine, but we're going to keep the same requirements, right? Just to make it easy for the grading at the end. These use cases are also very useful for designing test cases, to validate that the system is supporting these use cases, right? And allows you to create, test-driven applications. Use cases typically are documented deliberately. They're documented somewhat vague, right? They're deliberately not specific about the particular infrastructure or the particular language or the particular technology that you're going to be using to implement it, right? Oftentimes they're left vague enough for folks to decide whether this is going to be a mobile application or a web application or a desktop application. So you wouldn't say that you click on a button or you swipe, right, or you scroll, right? So you would leave out those particular details, okay? So that you leave it up to the implementer to decide how actually you're going to implement it, right? Instead, you use vague things such as you submit the data, right? Whether that submission is submitting a form or swiping or clicking or whatever, right? That's left for the implementation. Yes, but in the same token, yes, it's vague on the actual implementation, but it's explicit enough that the requirement is clear what we want to achieve, what goal we want to achieve. Yes, but the implementation is left to interpretation on how it's going to be implemented. Right? So it's explicit enough that you don't need to ask me what the goal is, what we want to achieve, but it's left vague enough for the implementer, or how whatever wireframe, or whether we're going to use a single form or we're going to use a wizard that goes through multiple pages. That's left for implementation. Those are not part of the use case analysis. Make sense? There's many templates on how to document use cases. Here's just one template. Typically, the first part of the use case will have a title. This title typically is a verb phrase, right? It's a very short verb phrase that says who's executing this, right? Then the verb, right? That specifies what are they doing, and then perhaps another noun specifying who are they doing it to. Okay, so for instance, you might say a customer is requesting a table, right? They want to view the menu, right? So you specify who, what are they doing, and some other specifying noun, right? And typically maybe 3 or 4 words would be plenty as a title. But from the title should be from the title, typically you should be able to immediately understand what is that you're trying to do. It's a very abstract. It's like a function name. The function name should be very descriptive enough that it captures the entire theme of the goal that you're trying to achieve. Yes? Okay. Then it's followed by perhaps a paragraph or two describing in plain English what is it that we're trying to achieve. Okay. Very, very short. Then it preconditions things that you are assuming. Maybe you assume that you're already logged in. I already know that you're this particular user, right? That you're logging in and you are the owner, or you are a customer, or you are a delivery boy. So I know who you are. Maybe these are preconditions. So assumptions. Then followed by very specific steps about what the actor does and how the system responds. Right? I'm searching for a table, and the system responds with a list of tables. And then the user clicks on a particular, submits how many customers they want to, and then the system responds with a filtered list of tables that are support the number of folks that want to book a table. Yes, so you specify the steps on what the actor does and how the system responds. This could be like a side-by-side where the actor's on the left-hand side and the system's on the right-hand side, or it could be just steps one after another. That's up to you. If there are more than one actor participating, maybe you're inviting someone to join you at a restaurant, and the other actor responds whether they accept or not. Then you have a post-condition that states what is the system after these steps are executed. For instance, it might be that yes, now you have a table that was booked, right? That you have a reservation, or you have a page saying thank you, right? We expect you, Sunday at 5 o'clock, right? And you're booking for 2, right? For your anniversary, whatever. And then after that, you might also describe any other alternate scenarios that might have occurred. Usually these steps over here are the happy path. It's the happy path when everything goes right? When there are no errors, when there is a table available, the product is available, you have enough quantity, right? So the happy path, okay, when everything goes right. But here you might describe here alternate paths, saying, hey, well, on step 2, right, if there are no tables, then this system responds with some alternative thing, right? Might say, the system might say, well, we don't have a table for 2 at 1 o'clock, but we have one at 1:30. Okay, so the system might respond with some alternative path. So you describe alternative paths. Either you can describe them afterwards, or you can describe them right as part of the original steps. 2A, 2B, 2C, on what should happen. Make sense? So it's kind of like pseudocode, right? So this should be vague enough that I don't tell you how to implement it, but it's explicit enough that I can run with this, and I can implement a website with this, or I can implement a mobile application with this. Okay, that fulfills this requirement. Now this is just one template. There's a whole bunch of other versions of templates. I don't care which one you use. Again, this is for the project. I don't care which one you use. Here's another one. Just formatted a little bit different. Here's yet another one. With fill in the blanks. And there's an infinite number of templates out there. You can look them up on online and use one of the templates that's available. There's some Word documents that you can download and use as templates, or you can use the one I provided. A couple other. Here's a system. This is a social network for fishermen, right? That want to go out fishing on the weekend, and they want to go. One fisherman wants to go with their buddies, and they can schedule a trip this weekend, and they want to invite some of their buddies, and they're going to see if their buddies accept or not. and they can enter where they're going to go, what the weather might be, that they might add, what gear they're going to take to go fishing, so this is kind of a description that it's a social network. You describe the system, describe the system, the organization when it was created, and some of the actors. You have a fisherman or fisherwoman, a sponsor that might be trying to sell to the fishermen, trying to sell them where to rent boats, where to buy the bait, where to eat, where to sell them the gear that they're going to be using, the end user that is using the system. So the different actors. Here's just one of the use cases. The use case might be that I want to search for a location. The description is that the fisherman can enter the city, the town, the states, the addresses or zips, and in a map it shows them where there's good places to fish. Preconditions might be that they're logged in. We know that they're fishermen, and the steps are that the fisherman can enter location. The system responds with a map location. The fisherman selects the location, displays details about how the tide is going to be, what the weather's going to be like in that particular area, and they confirm the selection and dismisses the selection. Typically, these use cases are documented using a use case diagram like this, where you can specify all the different actors that are participating, here represented as stick figures, and then some bubbles that just list all the various use cases, just to specify which ones are related to a particular actor and which ones are related to a different actor. Right, this is a really quick documentation to see if all the use cases are there, right? Just to visually see that they're there. Some of them some of these use cases are common, that they're overlapping, right? That both the sponsor and the fisherman, they both need to they can update their profile, create an account. But whereas the sponsor can create an ad, they can create a product, they can create a store, right? Which are completely distinct from what the fisherman can do. Right? Okay? All right. So this is just for you to document and be able to capture these use cases. Now notice that these use cases have some key words here. Notice that these nouns here, like gear or fish or trip or location, typically those are clues that you'll probably need to model these nouns, right? That these are going to be classes that you're going to have to be implementing, right? That you're going to have a trip class, you're going to have a fish class, right? You're going to have a location class, a gear class, right? And usually each one of these will be related to one another, right? That on a trip, I want to be able to document what fish I caught in a particular trip. So there'll probably be a one-to-many relationship between trips and fish. Okay, and the trips were created by a person. So typically there'll be a one-to-many relationship between a particular user and the trips that they create. Yes, typically if one fisherman can invite many of his buddies to go on a particular trip, probably there'll be a many-to-many mapping between a particular trip and all the folks that are invited to that trip. Right. So these are all clues on the data structure that you're going to be building. Also, typically each one of these objects is going to have certain operations that are very standard, right? They're all going to have to be able to create, find them all, right? Be able to list all the trips, list all the buddies that were invited, right? Be able to create, update, delete, all the CRUD operations that go along with that. So that already starts to give you a structure of what the application might look like, right? It helps start to structure in your head what is the implementation that this might look like, and then start to perhaps create a plan of how to implement this, and and provide perhaps an implementation plan, and perhaps start to cost what the effort might be to actually implement this, right? So for each one of these, I'll need to create 4 or 5 or 6 operations on each one of these. Right? For each one of these nouns, there'll be a create, an update, a delete, a find by ID, a find all, or find by a particular criteria. Already have six particular operations on each one of these. If each one of them takes me, 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours to implement, that already takes you, right? I need to, for each one of these, it might take me a whole week to implement this, right? So immediately you start thinking about the complexity and how long it'll take you to build each one of these, right? So immediately it helps out to plan out the implementation. Now those specifics